Ukrainians are definitely the only ones in the world who can say which Western systems are actually effective and which are not. It is the guardians of the Ukrainian sky who have proven that Patriot systems are the only reliable defense against ballistics. To cover Ukrainian cities, such Patriot systems which you have received into service are critically important. Well, it is actually a unique system in terms of its capabilities.
You know, every system we receive from our partners it's all unique. Because the shift of such a pole that happened to us very quickly in such a short period to rearm with Patriot anti-aircraft missile systems, with NASAMS anti-aircraft missile systems, with IRIS anti-aircraft missile systems, with Hawk anti-aircraft missile systems. Well, there is probably no precedent in history where in such a short period of time we have taken such big steps. I always joke like this and say that denazification went very successfully for the Ukrainian army and especially for the anti-aircraft missile forces. We received modern systems, which of course are a class above the systems we had.
Are they better than Russian systems?
Yes, they are much better than Russian systems because they are modular, they can change their configuration, they can be retrofitted with any launchers, any types of missiles, different types of missiles that perform different tasks. There probably isn't such a range of anti-aircraft missile systems, there isn't one in the world. And the key thing that I would really like to emphasize here, and I think everyone has probably heard this by now, is that when American generals spoke in the past, and even when we continue to communicate with them right now, they still honestly cannot believe that our Ukrainian anti-aircraft gunners were able to master and learn these complex anti-aircraft missile systems that we have in our possession today so incredibly quickly.
Did they doubt we could master it?
Yes, they doubted it because they had planned the initial training for practically 6 months. And this training was taking place in the United States of America. They thought that we wouldn't be able to learn it in such a short period of time. When they realized this, they later reduced our training to 3 months and understood that we could master these systems in 3 months.
What is the uniqueness of Ukrainian air defense in terms of learning? What sets us apart? Well, people are all roughly the same. Arms, legs, head, intellect. What sets us apart? What motivated us to master these homework assignments and this material and these systems so quickly?
Well, first of all, of course, we all wanted victory. We wanted to close the Ukrainian sky. Everyone did because I myself went through training in Norway with the guys and we all literally said, like, after a week that we had already learned it, we were already ready to go to Ukraine. But there was a standard that we had to undergo training for a month. Therefore, every crew that arrived in Ukraine immediately took up a combat position and immediately began carrying out missions. There are such unique instances, of course, when crews went straight from training to certain points and worked against Russian aircraft, against Su-34, against Su-35, and quite successfully at that. And
with Patriots?
Yes, these were our systems. Yes, that's right. Therefore, there is a unique merit here, both of our instructors and our servicemen specifically, that the first thing is their patriotism specifically, their, well, desire to protect the Ukrainian sky. And the second thing, of course, is, probably the great school we went through studying the anti-aircraft missile systems S-300 book, S-300 V1, that we already knew the theory itself, the practice itself. We knew how to use it, how to work with it. And we only needed to learn the technical layout and the correct application of these systems. Therefore,
Mr. Vitali, well, I understand that you are sharing your experience with our allies. We are a testing ground for them for, let's say, not just for testing, but for confirming certain things related to air defense systems, but improving probably, yes, their development as well. And probably, well, information, you are sharing information with them. So do you have any statistics on how many Russian aircraft have been shot down by Patriot?
No, I have statistics, but I wouldn't want to voice them, these statistics.
Is it dozens of aircraft?
Well, it's more than dozens. It's not dozens, it's hundreds. It's hundreds of aircraft. It's not dozens, it's hundreds that were shot down by the Patriot anti-aircraft missile system. Because at that moment, after replacing the S-300 anti-aircraft missile system, it became the only system with which we could drive them back and prevent them from crossing our state borders.
So it has justified itself 100%.
Yes, this is at the present time probably the best system in the world that can work against aircraft, both aerodynamic targets as well as ballistic targets, and also against hypersonic targets that the enemy has.
But look, we were talking, you said that the missiles are expensive, and the Americans, well, maybe they don't count money, they have their own protocol, but for us, considering the limited quantity and the cost of these missiles, the limited quantity and the unlimited cost, we have our own specific protocol, and this speaks to the uniqueness of the crews and the teams. There really are no people like this in the world.
Well, every country uses this system in its own way, and every country, having our experience, is learning from us how to work most effectively with Patriot anti-aircraft missile systems. Because the number of missiles produced in the world is not unlimited, it has a certain quantity at the present time. It may be increased over time, but every missile must hit every target. Therefore, we do not have the right at this time to use 2, 3, or 4 missiles on a single target. That is why we are currently using 1 missile per target. And as our partners say, they are amazed by this, that our operators, our Patriot missile system operators, can do this. They can do it. Yes, because the main operating mode of this anti-aircraft missile system is automated. The operator presses a button and the system calculates the hit accuracy and operates until it destroys the aerial target using the maximum supply of guided anti-aircraft missiles. That could be 2, 3, or 4 missiles. Our operators use 1 missile per target.
Mr. Vitali, how will the anti-aircraft missile component of the Air Force develop in the future? How do you see this development? Is it an increase in the number of systems we already have, or some new systems, or the creation of our own Ukrainian systems? How do you...
Well, here we need to divide it into 3 directions of work. We must maintain the systems that we currently have available. And this is our primary task, to ensure they work effectively. Second is to create modularity, not by increasing the number of systems, which increases the number of operators and personnel. We know that our human resources are limited, so we are creating modularity. We are increasing the number of launchers and changing their specific configuration so that these launchers can operate against unmanned aerial vehicles, cruise missiles, and ballistic targets. And our third direction is, of course, working on the development of Ukrainian anti-aircraft missile systems that could eventually replace foreign ones, because
they are underway.
Yes, this work is underway, and work is being done both on the development of anti-aircraft missile systems for ballistic missiles, as well as for cruise missiles and for unmanned aerial vehicles. Therefore, these developments exist, and some of them are already working, and we are doing this together with our partners. This is with Germany, with Norway. We are doing joint projects where we specifically use their experience and our weapons.
There is currently a discussion regarding the possibility of producing Patriot missiles in Ukraine based on their cost and needs. I think that a decision will be made. Yes, most likely. Despite the fact that we hear doubts from Trump today and so on, let's consider this to be some kind of information noise. But practically speaking, is Ukraine capable? How do you see it? Is Ukraine capable in the short term of being a producer of Patriot missiles?
Yes, Ukraine is capable, and we need to take everything that can possibly be done in Ukraine and do it in Ukraine. Because if we don't have our own production and don't have our own anti-aircraft guided missiles, then it will be difficult for us to keep the sky clear of ballistic missiles. Therefore, every country, I think that all countries, they dream of having such production. Ukraine currently has a unique chance to specifically acquire this technology and build this missile in Ukraine.
As for the transition to other equipment, yes, thanks to our partners, we received F-16 aircraft last year. Although for them it is, an old series. But for us, it is a very big step forward.
What are the F-16s focusing on right now? What is their main job right now?
The F-16 is a multi-role aircraft. It can perform tasks in the air with high efficiency, against aerial targets, as well as carrying out fire strikes on the ground, also with high quality. That is why we say that it is a multifunctional aircraft.
When cruise missiles are launched at Ukraine, I know that F-16 aircraft take off, and this is the main aircraft that performs the task of shooting down missiles from aerial platforms, right? So how effective is it? How effective has it proven to be in countering cruise missiles?
it has shown very high effectiveness. I'll just give you an example. The latest strike showed us that out of 61 aerial targets of the cruise missile type, F-16 aircraft destroyed 38.
We have shot down 55 cruise missiles. You say F-16 aircraft shot down 38. The Poles with 2 F-16s were unable to shoot down this cruise missile. What do you think is the reason for this? Short distance, lack of protocols, lack of experience? What is it?
Well, I think that NATO countries, they operate according to protocols. They have very strict ones. And what happened that they didn't shoot it down? Perhaps it was a short distance. Perhaps there was the decision-making process. I, cannot comment on such things because since I do not possess information about what happened to them during that short segment after the missile crossed the border.
You cannot fight bombs, but you can fight the aircraft that dropped them, in theory at least. What do we need in order to effectively counter guided aerial bombs?
Well, first of all, probably it's a complex, probably we need to have a comprehensive approach. This is destroying the aircraft themselves while they are still on the ground, on their territory. Reduce their capabilities to deliver these guided aerial bombs. We already have examples where we shot them down. The latest one was a Su-35.
Carrying guided bombs, right?
It was covering a group that was carrying guided aerial bombs. Yes, it made a maneuver towards our group where we successfully engaged it.
The bombs that our Western partners provide us, both Hammer and GBU and so on. We understand that it is still difficult to compare the quantity we have with what the enemy has, but, well, are these bombs more effective or more accurate than the enemy's bombs?
Yes, I can even say with 100% certainty that they are more accurate and effective. I also want to add that we have successfully integrated our domestic equipment, that we have our fleet, which is the Su-27, Su-25, Su-24, with the weaponry of our Western partners. We are successfully delivering them to their destination. It works precisely, yes, flawlessly one could say, 99%, it's flawless.
One of the first examples of adaptation were the Storm Shadow missiles, which were truly a surprise for the enemy and, well, a surprise for us too, because we all wanted to have exactly this kind of weapon. Have these missiles lost their relevance considering the changes in the war?
Storm Shadow, Scalp, no, they haven't lost their relevance. They are very effective. And at the beginning, when we started using them, it was a surprise for the Russian Federation. But the only limitation is their small quantity. We would like more and more to delight our enemy.
What were you able to destroy with these missiles? Where did they hit?
The targets were military facilities. These are critical command posts, essential supply depots, and vital logistics hubs that support the entire operation.
I was looking at statistics on various Telegram channels. There's a figure that, in principle, we are currently destroying up to 98% of UAVs like Shahed, Geran, Gerbera. Does this correspond to reality?
Yes, this really does correspond to reality. With types like Shahed, 131, 136, and Geran 1-2. As of today, let's say, there are already very many ways of fighting them. Well, since all components have been involved in this, both the unmanned component and mobile fire groups and anti-aircraft artillery systems and short-range air defense assets. So exactly, specifically the figure that is 90% or more are destroyed today. Specifically the UAVs, which first appeared, well, let's say, from the enemy and began to be used against our infrastructure facilities. But
I am going to interrupt you right there. So the fact that so many people have finally breathed a sigh of relief, we really can thank you for that.
Well, not just our team, specifically the Air Force, but everyone who is involved in the fight against this type of strike UAV. But today, well, there is a glaring, let's say, point. The enemy is, well, let's say, improving its tactics of deployment, specifically the technical component of its strike UAVs, and well, is using, well, has already started using, well, jet-powered UAVs there, which entails, well, first and foremost, an increase in speed there. A short, let's say, short time spent in the detection field by the aforementioned UAV, which reduces the reaction time of our units to engage it there. And accordingly, well, the tactics of the application itself are changing, you see, and all the technological principles that are, well, embedded in the UAV, namely regarding targeting objects, accordingly maneuvering, changing the tactics of application.
Have they not lost? Well, we have interceptor drones appearing, and this is actually a very interesting topic. With the appearance of jet-powered unmanned vehicles, have they not already lost their relevance?
Yes, so drones, let's say, on the market, let's say, of our drones, and we currently have more than 31 types of unmanned systems. Well, as of today,
Interceptor.
yes, well, as of today, it is losing effectiveness, let's say, in terms of working specifically with jet-powered UAVs. We currently have, well, the issue is being worked on. As of today, there are 5 manufacturers who are currently scaling up, let's say, their capabilities in order to, that is, they are undergoing the relevant departmental tests, improving their technical capabilities in order to counter these types of enemy UAVs.
War is raging in the Middle East.
Yes.
Iran has started actively using Shahed-type drones against its neighbors, and not just against its neighbors. Have Middle Eastern countries reached out to you for help to share your experience? And are you sharing it with them?
Yes, of course. Let's put it this way. On the entire world stage right now, well, people are observing the events that are taking place here in our country, you know, and let's say after the corresponding, well, actions that are taking place there in the Middle East or in some European countries, well, based on the fact that the effectiveness, let's say, of our assets has proven its, well, high guarantee there of destroying the specified types of UAVs, well, Middle Eastern countries and some European countries are reaching out, yes, to the military leadership of the armed forces of Ukraine in order to simply provide, well, let's say, methodological assistance on how one can, well, defeat this, let's say, type of enemy. They are, as it were, adopting our application practices, well, carrying out their combat missions. That is, well, let's say, thanks to the fact that, well, let's say we conduct both theoretical and practical training on how, well, in accordance with the changes in the tactics of using the enemy's UAVs themselves, that is, so that they improve their skills in this. I can't say anything more. Yes.
It works.
Yes.
You have actually done, well, almost the impossible, I believe. You did not let the Russians control our airspace, which is what they were counting on. You successfully managed to prevent them from completely dominating the airspace over Ukraine, which was a critical turning point in the conflict. It really made all the difference.
It was a complex of measures, you understand, well, teamwork, because the raids were every 4 to 6 hours and they worked steadily. From 8, well, practically just off the top of my head, up to 20 aircraft took part in the raids. We understood that, simply put, in such a physical confrontation, well, we had, well, practically no chance. Therefore, there were a number of measures. This also concerns the security of operations. We carried out imitation actions, and they were quite effective. I can't disclose it right now because we are currently using some techniques. We were conducting, well...
Meaning deceiving the enemy?
Yes. It was precisely the actions of the aviation in the first stage that provided the opportunity to restore the serviceability and combat readiness of the S-300 systems, which have already started working. We connected the S-300V1 and reinforced the bucks. So we covered the right bank, the Korostan direction, and then the regrouping and the work of the echeloned anti-aircraft, missile forces and aviation began. And certain measures for the survivability of airfields were ensured through the courage and heroism of our ground support specialists. Because there was an incident where one of the airfields was struck by an Iskander missile, and it was a concrete piercing one, it hit practically in the center. It made a crater like this. The runway had, well, quite significant damage. In terms of tactics, this is practically a Type A incapacitation, meaning up to 7 days for airfield restoration. But our specialists managed to do it with the help of the local administration and the mayor. They practically crushed what was left of the concrete, did an incredible job, filled it with crushed stone, paved it with asphalt, and within a day the airfield was ready. The enemy had already entered and, well, practically surrounded Kiev. Only one route remained, to Odessa. And so they were trying to cut off that route. Our ground forces specialists did such a great job there. They naturally requested air support, and since our books were already stationed here, they went further west through Zhytomyr to approach Bila Tserkva. And so the takeoff of the aircraft, the operation, and we were listening in. After all, the A-50 was hovering there around the clock, and that's a command post. We entered their channel. I could hear them. The scout was reporting. It was clear which groups were approaching, where, and so on. And they were escorting their fighters, giving instructions. And so the conversation of the pilot, of the Russians who were attacking, they were trying to attack from that side. When our Sukhois took off, the phrase was, "Where the hell do they keep coming from?" That's my original. Well, it wasn't hell, it was a slightly different word. And so they couldn't understand how this was being done. Therefore, there was a complex of measures, including simulation actions, maneuvering between airfields, operations against air forces, their simulation of the air situation. Well, a series of measures that allowed us to first pause and shoot down their special aviation, and then, when we had already gone and built a maneuverable air defense system, we started working, and the books performed very well. They realized that the issue was quite complex, and when they are told, "It's fine there, it's nothing, go ahead, yes, go to work." And when they say, "Wait, there's nothing there, so who is shooting us down?" And there have already been cases, this was, I think, 2 weeks ago when the next rotation was coming in. They were working from the side of Belarus, and the group was coming in, approached the state border without crossing the state border, although they had already entered our territory, and part of the territory was occupied. They simulated an attack and left. And then the second fragment, and I say to the scout, "What is this?" And then, when it was already based on intercepts, he says, "A flight over the combat zone has begun." They first sighted in, took a look. That is, everything was already tactically competently structured in terms of work and so on and so forth.
Now, everything has changed very significantly. So, what do you think? Which Russian aerial attack assets are the most dangerous for us?
First, yes, ballistic targets. They are quite complex. Although our crews have a huge amount of experience, you understand yourself the certain problems that are voiced at all levels. They do not allow for 100% of targets to be intercepted, although our guys are already working like that and are trying to work one-to-one. One ballistic target, one missile expended. Although according to standards and efficiency calculations, it's, well, a minimum of 1.5 to 2 missiles per target. For Ballis, they are very complex targets. They maneuver in altitude and even in course. Therefore, our crews are already working on them manually, right?
You're talking about Patriots, right?
Yes, yes, of course. Then, in terms of complexity, come cruise missiles, these Iskanders and ground-based ones, 101 calibers, which they use in mass, and let's say synchronization in time near the target object. They try to calculate the arrival from different directions at the same time, taking into account the arrival of Shaheds, cruise missiles, and the use of ballistics. They are attempting such a complex, massive, concentrated strike.
So they come in at different times, but converge.
Yes, along different routes, from different
routes, but they converge on a single target.
Yes. So, for example, they launch from the sea. They launch air-launched cruise missiles from 2 bombers. They launch Iskander K, and they launch Ka-59. Now, the Shaheds have already gone into production, and they are currently shifting to a greater quantitative use of jet-powered Shaheds. This is also a challenge we are currently addressing.
Without going into any details, right? Give us some form of hope. Will a solution be found against these jet-powered Shaheds?
Yes, there are already certain projects, certain developments, and certain practical applications. Already, well, I cannot disclose these projects yet, but there are certain ground-based air defense assets that have already shown their effectiveness, and there is, accordingly, objective control material regarding this. Usually, well, such a quantity does not yet allow for their complete destruction. But I am confident that the capacity will be increased. A complex of measures is being implemented, and I think in the near future we should reach a stable, scalable solution for addressing this problem.
The Air Force has shown, well, a high result in shooting down, well, cruise missiles in particular. First of all, what was the reason for achieving such a result? In my opinion, 55, if I'm not mistaken, missiles you shot down.
Well, 6.
54. Yeah?
Remember, there were cases when up to 100% of targets were shot down. I cannot disclose the details yet, but due to the processing and utilization, the maximum use of the F-16's capabilities using integrated onboard weaponry, the guys have excellent results. And you even remember, this was one of the sorties when the pilot had 4 missiles under the wing, and he destroyed 6. This has already been written about, and he received a worthy award, considering that he used air-to-air missiles, and then visually identified the targets, and 2 more missiles were finished off by the cannons. So 6 missiles in one flight, that is a benchmark.
When they, let's say, ultimately fail to successfully implement their strategic plans regarding these ongoing shelling attacks, and when they spend a truly crazy amount of missiles and accordingly a staggering amount of money on these specific attacks, and they, as it were, consistently fail to achieve any meaningful results, do they actually take the time to fundamentally restructure their tactics after that? Or do they simply continue on the same path?
Of course, they
Every time?
analyze the strike. For instance, when 100% of the missiles were destroyed, they were coming in along one route and so on. Well, they had their own tactics, which we worked out quite simply, and it was employed by the aviation and destroyed, well, completely the number of missiles that were coming in. So after that, they built it completely differently, and in principle, we anticipated it. Well, I won't go into details now, but every strike of theirs is already evaluated, and then the next strike is planned, taking into account what they didn't achieve. In other words, this is an enemy that thinks, that plans, and that, I will say, is seriously prepared. This is, I would say, such a dynamic